The night was dark and silent. Emma was driving home when suddenly, she spotted a small dog by the roadside. The dog looked exhausted, dirty, and starving, as if it hadn't eaten in days. "Oh, poor thing. What are you doing here?" Emma said softly, gently stroking the dog's head. The dog wagged its tail slightly, but its eyes held a strange sadness, almost as if it was trying to say something. Emma decided to take the dog home. "You probably need food and rest," she said as she carefully picked it up and placed it in the back seat of her car. The dog stayed quiet, but its gaze was fixed on Emma the entire time. When they arrived at her house, Emma gave the dog some food. But when she returned from the kitchen, she was startled. The dog was sitting still, staring at the wall intently, as if something was there. "That's strange," Emma muttered, glancing at the wall. There was nothing. The dog let out a low growl, its eyes still glued to the wall. Emma brushed it off as nothing unusual and took the dog to her room to rest. Later that night, Emma woke up to a strange noise. She opened her eyes and saw the dog standing by her bed. But it wasn't looking at her. Instead, it was staring out the window into the darkness, growling deeply and menacingly. The next morning, Emma called the dog for breakfast, but it was nowhere to be found. She eventually discovered it in the backyard, digging furiously at the ground. "What are you doing?" Emma asked, walking closer. The dog had uncovered a rusty old chain buried in the dirt. Emma felt a strange chill run down her spine as she saw it. Where did this come from, she wondered aloud, reaching to pick up the chain. But before she could, the dog barked loudly and snatched it up in its mouth. From that day on, the dog's behavior changed. It became eerily silent, only occasionally making sounds that didn't seem like those of a normal dog. Emma started feeling that something unusual was happening in her home. One night, as Emma was reading, the dog suddenly ran to the door and started barking wildly. "What is it?" Emma asked, opening the door. But there was no one there. The dog continued growling, its eyes fixated on something invisible. A cold gust of wind blew past Emma, and she froze as she heard a faint whisper in her ear. "Don't touch the chain." The following morning, Emma decided to investigate the chain further. She took it to her friend Jack, a historian. "This chain looks very old, maybe over 100 years, Jack said, examining it closely. "Where did you find it?" Emma explained everything. Jack studied the chain carefully and then said, "There's something strange about these markings on it. They look like some kind of symbol." He promised to do more research and let her know. That night, Emma had a dream. She was in an ancient forest, surrounded by eerie whispers. Suddenly, the dog appeared, but its eyes were glowing red. It looked at Emma and said in a deep, haunting voice, "Go back." Emma woke up in a cold sweat and was startled to see the dog sitting by her bed, staring at her. Its eyes were normal again, but its behavior remained unsettling. The next morning, Jack called Emma urgently. "You need to come over right now," he said. Emma rushed to his house, where Jack explained, "This chain is connected to an old legend. Over a century ago, a man used it to tie up his dog. But he was cruel to the animal, treating it horribly. One day, the dog died, but people say its spirit never found peace." Emma's heart pounded. "So, this chain?" "It could be the same one," Jack replied. "Legend says that anyone who touches it becomes linked to the dog's restless spirit." That night, Emma dreamt of the forest again. This time, the dog stood before her, but there was a dark shadow looming behind it, moving closer. Gathering her courage, Emma said, "I'm not afraid of you. If you need peace, tell me how I can help." The dog hesitated for a moment, then slowly approached Emma. It dropped the chain at her feet and sniffed at a spot in the ground. Emma realized it wanted her to bury the chain along with something else, its old bone. With Jack's help, Emma buried the chain and bone in a quiet, secluded spot. As soon as they finished, the dog appeared one last time. It looked at Emma with a sense of calm and gratitude before slowly fading away. Emma's eyes filled with tears, but she felt relieved. She had faced her fears and helped a restless soul find peace. She knew the encounter had changed her forever.